Hello, and welcome to another episode of Physical Format Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Gary.
And I'm Brady. Happy to be back again.
This is a show where we talk about all things rock and roll and classic metal. So, this is an album review episode, but it's a little bit different because this is not a new album review, and it's not an overlooked gem. It's just an album we picked to review. We were having a discussion before he heads back to where he lives. We said, well, let's do another album review or do something. Let's film another video. And we said, well, let's review an album. And I don't know, somehow the conversation turned to AC/DC. And I'd asked him if he'd heard their last album, which he had not, except for one track off of it. So I said, well, how about you listen to it fresh? I'll listen to it again because I haven't really listened to it that much. And we'll just do a review on it. And so the album that we're talking about is AC/DC, Rock or Bust. Kind of got that cool hologram going on there.
Do you like that album cover?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That is a pretty cool album cover. So this was released in November of 2014. It kind of, everything kind of goes in disarray around this time, right? This had been 6 years since they had released Black Ice, which is an album we both like.
I really like that album. I thought it was a great album.
We saw that tour.
Yeah. That's the only time I've actually ever seen AC/DC live was on that Black Ice tour. And I think, if I remember correctly, they played 3 or 4 songs from the album. When we saw them, which was pretty exciting. Not all bands do that now when they tour off new albums, so that was cool to see.
Right. And of course, now they'll probably, when they do play live, they'll never play it again. Of course, who knows we don't know what the future of AC/DC is right now. Right. Brian Johnson's problems. And then that kind of leads into discussion of this album. So this finds us the first album without Malcolm, founding member Malcolm Young, brother of Angus, of course, was not on this album. Instead, he was replaced by Stevie Young, which is Angus and Malcolm's nephew. So they just figured, well, your last name is Young.
Keep it in the family.
We'll put you in a band. They figured he had the same sensibilities or whatever. But Malcolm does help co-write.
I think every song he's got co-writing credits on every song on the album.
So he's still there in spirit. It's kind of got this cool picture, and I love this picture of their 2 guitars, and then it says in rock we trust there. That's pretty cool.
Kind of a nice tribute there to
and the other thing they've got, if you look inside here, sorry, I don't have the record, I got the CD on this. But it says, and most important of all, thanks to Mal, who made it all possible. You can see that right there, which is true. Malcolm Young, probably the unsung hero of AC/DC. Everybody, of course, always focuses on Angus, Bon Scott, and Brian Johnson, right? Especially when you see them live. I mean, that's if you never have, if you've never seen AC/DC live, their whole thing is those 2 guys out front. Malcolm and Cliff standing in the back,
almost in the shadows,
playing a rhythm until it comes time to come up and sing the chorus. They come up, sing the chorus, and then they walk back to their spot.
Phil Rudd's usually back there with maybe a cigarette, hanging out on the side of his mouth, just doing his thing.
So anyway, Malcolm does not play on this album, but he's there in spirit, and he did co-write a lot of it. And it's, so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So anyway, the album starts out, I think we both agree. Rock or Bust is the first song, and Play Ball. Both great songs.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I listened to the album today, Rock or Bust was the only song I had known off the album. I just heard it a couple of times, in passing. I don't know if it got any airplay on classic rock radio or not, but I know I'd heard the song a couple of times and thought it was a pretty cool song. But I think it's a great, the title track number 1, Rock or Bust. It's a great intro to the album.
It is. Got a good groove to it. You know, it's got the whole stuttering guitar going with it, and you know, then the vocals fill in with the empty drums, or I mean, drums playing, and you know, no guitar, spacing type thing with the vocals. Very cool song. Play Ball. See, I'm surprised you don't remember this. Play Ball was actually used during the playoffs for baseball season of 2014.
Okay.
They were playing that song for it, you know, kind of a promotional thing or whatever. But
yeah, super cool track though. I mean, like Rock or Bust, it's got a pretty cool groove, a memorable song. Like, you know, the tune is gonna stick with you after you listen to it.
yeah, both those songs could go on a lot of the other AC/DC albums and fit right in, and you know, be like, yeah, cool song, you know, great classic song. It's from that point forward though that the album kind of, I don't want to say that it goes downhill. It does a little bit, but then it just kind of, it goes down a bit, and then it just kind of maintains.
Yeah, it kind of loses some of its creativity. I mean, honestly, I would say from that point forward, there's 11 tracks on the album, and so after those first two,
11 short tracks. But
yeah, 11 shorter tracks. I mean, it kind of gets monotonous a bit for me. Towards the middle, a lot of the songs have the same groove, the same beat, the same feel, just with, you know, minor changes. It gets a little stagnant.
Yeah, and which is kind of reminiscent of a lot of AC/DC albums, I think, from, you know, the 90s on. Well, first of all, they don't put out the albums like they used to at the rate of them. And so, I mean, now I remember Black Ice did have a lot of tracks on that
I
album.
they had like 15 or 16
Yeah, it
tracks.
seemed like a lot of, and you know, it had a little more variety.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't have, that they used to have more, is like, you know, there's no songs on here that all of a sudden kick it into overdrive.
Right.
Like you just said, it's all very, you know, it gets a little monotonous. Occasionally, none of them suck. It's kind of like, it's not, none of these songs are bad. It's not like this is a horrible album. It's just not one that, you know, you'll ever say, well, I'm gonna put this up there with my top AC/DC albums. It's just kind of like, you know, it's not bad. They're all decent rock songs, but they're not like, you know, nothing really grabs you except those first two tracks. Now, you know, like I said, we both listened to it, and we both agreed, Baptism by Fire and Rock the House, both pretty good.
Yeah, those two stood out to me past those first two tracks. Baptism by Fire, Rock the House. Although they're similar to those other songs, they've got a little bit cooler groove, just a nice hook.
Just enough to them to separate them.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, Dogs of War is also a different sounding track, but I can't say I'm crazy about it. It doesn't really sound like an AC/DC song in a way to me.
Yeah.
But you know, then you've got some Rock and Roll Thunder, Hard Times, and those are kind of like just, yeah, they're okay. But you know, they're just the same steady thing going by, nothing special. You know, this needs another Shoot to Thrill or A Whole Lot of Rosie, something like that. You know, a fast, in your face kind of thing. It's like too much of this is just, you know, I mean, obviously it's all rocking because it's AC/DC, but it's just nothing that special.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a lot of it sounds like just the guys from, like, if you were just listening to the guys from AC/DC, sit back, relax, have a beer, and play a few songs. It seems like they kind of coast through the album a little bit. It's, you know, it's not bad, but it's not great. It's just
and I think what a lot of this is some of the, you know, this is stuff that had already been, you know, kind of worked out. Some songs that had been left over, like from other albums. You know, I imagine that, you know, my guess would be half of this was probably stuff left over from Black Ice. You know, like they already had it maybe even recorded, or, you know, had played it and thought, well, you know, no, we're not going to put it on this album, and so it came on that. Unfortunately, hopefully, this isn't the way AC/DC goes out. We don't know if they're going to make it. I mean, supposedly they've worked on another album. That's the rumor, but we've heard that for at least a year now that they've recorded a new album. So I don't know if it's because of the whole COVID-19 that they haven't released it, or if that's just, the story's bullcrap or what.
Yeah.
But, I would hate to see this, not that it matters. I mean, AC/DC has proven themselves over 1,000 times.
Their legacy is cemented, but
yes,
you'd like to see them go out with a little bit more hard rocking album, maybe than this.
Something to separate. AC/DC has always their key to everything has been dynamics. They come in with the drums, the guitar comes in, the vocals, then all of a sudden here comes the bass. And it's all simple stuff, right? Most bar bands can learn AC/DC songs. They have a little bit harder time with the Brian Johnson era, I think. You always hear bar bands doing the earlier AC/DC because it's easier to play, it's easier to sing. But not that I'm not saying that. I like both eras of AC/DC. Okay, I'm not one of these. I love this era, don't care about the other. I love them both. I love them both. At the same time, AC/DC is one of those bands I think everybody loves. Yeah. But I'd never say they're my favorite band.
No, and I think a lot of real hard rock and heavy metal fans are probably in that same place. Everybody likes AC/DC. Their type of music, there's a time and a place for it, but I think to your point, most people aren't. That's not their favorite band. They just like AC/DC.
As big as they are, and as many memorable, great songs, I'm never putting them up there with your Led Zeppelins, your Pink Floyds, The Who, Black Sabbath, even. Because they're just a really good hard rock band, And as far as having the, how we said like some of these songs are kind of throwaways, I always feel like AC/DC has that on kind of pretty much most of their albums in both eras. I could pick any Bon Scott album besides like probably Highway to Hell, and just like I could all the Brian Johnson ones. And there's always like a couple tracks normally where you're like, this is just something else to fill it up. But but the songs that are good are just great.
Yeah.
So
to me overall, I mean. I did like this album. Like I said, I listened to it all the way through for the first time today, so it's sometimes hard to give an opinion after listening through an album one time. I like to listen to it a couple times to kind of get to know the songs a little bit more, but just a lot of forgettable tracks and maybe more of those throwaway songs than a normal AC/DC album. And coming off Black Ice, which I really liked, but I mean, I guess there was 6 years in between or something like that.
6 or
8 or 8 years between those albums. I love Black Ice, so this was a bit disappointing for me.
Yeah, I agree. And let me ask you this. So since you've only listened, because, I've had it. I mean, I got it when it came out. If AC/DC puts an album out, I'm going to get it. Now that you've heard it, if you would own it, I mean, or do you think you'll go out and get it? Well, I don't know how you listen to your music for sure, but.
This would be one that I don't think I would go out and buy. There's other albums I'd rather buy.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to spend the money on it. I would encourage you to listen to the album. It's not a bad album, and I don't want to undersell it.
And if AC/DC is your favorite band, then you might like some of these tracks a little more than we did. Or if they are your favorite band, then maybe you hold them to even higher standards or something. I don't know, but I would definitely not, like a new AC/DC listener, I'm never going to recommend this. But at the same time, it's not horrible. It's just kind of pedestrian.
Yeah. One shout out I would like to give though that was a little bit change of pace was the last track on the album, Emission Control. It had kind of a cool bass groove.
Oh yeah, the song, you did point that out.
The song wasn't great, but I would say outside of that song, the bass is pretty stagnant throughout the album. I mean, you're not getting a lot of variety. I mean, that's AC/DC. Yeah. But that last track had kind of a cool, different bass groove. So, maybe give that track a listen as well, Mission Control.
And Brian sounds good.
Oh, yeah.
He sounds good. He's that third song, Rock the Blues Away, is kind of almost a more soulful kind of thing, you know, like an R&B feel almost to it, his vocal, and it kind of gives you a little bit different range of him, so it's kind of cool just for that. But the song itself is nothing that special. You know, the best thing about it is probably Brian's vocals, just because you get to hear a little bit different way of him singing. So anyway, you know, I guess probably, you know, out of 5 stars, I'd maybe give this 3.
Yeah, I think I'd give it 2 stars, and maybe that's just because of how much I did like Black Ice. So I mean, if you haven't listened to anything from AC/DC, the last few albums they put out, you know, I would definitely recommend Black Ice. But
I also like Stiff Upper Lip better than this. I like Stiff Upper Lip.
Yeah,
I think first of all, that song itself is great, but that's another topic, right? Sorry. So anyway, you know, get it. It's got some good songs, but you know, don't be too much of a hurry. If you need your AC/DC fix, then you know, and you want some new music. Maybe you never went back and bought it. Get it. It does have a few good songs, but it's never going to be your favorite album.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
So, all right. So till the next time, I'm Gary.
I'm Brady.
And this is Physical Format Rock and Roll. I would encourage anyone to please make any comments, to subscribe to this channel. Show some love, people. We'll see you.